offsite laboratory. So like for, like Quest Diagnostics and what LabCorp, it was something like that. It was a lab like that in New York. And so, and his lab was in Queens. So, just to give, so that you understand like travel times and all that. So he was really concerned that once he got to work, I wouldn't be able to reach him because they were not allowed to take their phones into the lab with them as they worked. And at night, they didn't have someone like manning the phones to be able to answer. And so it was kind of like once he went to work, like he was in a dungeon and there was no reaching him. So he was really worried, but I just kept telling him, just go. I'm fine. Like I was being so ugly. I was just angry. Like I was just furious. I was furious at the way that I had been treated because I knew that I deserved better than the treatment that I received. And I just knew I wasn't up for it again. I wasn't willing to go through it again. So anyway, he goes off to work. He probably left. I think he had to be at work at 4. So I think he worked 4 to midnight at the time, 3 to 11 or 4 to midnight. So he left and I'm in the bed and somewhere around 6 p.m. the phone rings. I look at the caller ID and it's the hospital that I had been at the night before. And I almost didn't answer, but I answered. And I answered and there's this doctor, it's a woman, and she's speaking, like I can tell she's trying to be calm, but I knew, like I heard the urgency in her voice. And so she was trying to, like not alarm me. And so she's like, Miss Willoughby, we know that you were here last night and how are you doing? And I just, in my way, was like, I'll follow up with my doctor on Monday. Being an ass. I'll follow up with my doctor on Monday. And she said, well, Miss Willoughby, there are concerns. Is it possible for you to come back to the hospital now? And I said, no, I will follow up with my doctor on Monday as I was instructed this morning. I have my STD meds. Thank you. And she then she then got to the point and she said, Miss Willoughby, you can't wait until Monday. The radiologist has just read your CT scan and your appendix is ruptured and there is poison all over your abdomen. You have to come back to the hospital. You have to come back to the hospital now. When you get here, we are likely rushing you into emergency surgery. So then I'm frantic, obviously. And I was just like, are you effing kidding me? Are you serious right now? So now I have 2 young kids who are in our apartment that I'm about to leave. I'm trying to reach my husband, but I know that I can't reach him. And, no one's answering the phone at his job. So I leave a message on his cell phone, hoping that like he'll go on break at some point and check his messages or like, thinking that he'll go on break and then call and check on me. And then we lived in New York City, but I had, our family, like my husband's family lived in Staten Island, which is, some ways away. And then I just couldn't even think actually like that. It doesn't even matter. Like I couldn't think. All I knew was call my husband, let him know I'm headed back to the hospital. And then I called my dad because my dad is my next of kin. And so I called my dad and I'm like frantic on the phone with him and like, I'm just like, I'm going to get a cab, but the boys are here and I don't know what to do. And so my dad calls his cousin who lives in Harlem so that his wife can travel all the way from Harlem with her children. And she had 3 or 4 at the time. And so, all of this is happening. All of this is going on. And all I know is I get in a cab, I get to the hospital. So one of the things was, so what the doctor told me before we hung up was she said, tell them Dr. So-and-so called you When you get there, go straight to the desk, tell them Dr. So-and-so called you. They're going to know that we're waiting for you. Don't wait. Tell them to bring you back straight away. So that's exactly what I do. I go to the ER. I walk to that desk. The same nurse that was there the night before is at the desk again. I say the words that I was told to say. Dr. So-and-so told me to let you know that they are waiting for me, and she tells me to have a seat. I told her I'm not going to have a seat, and she tries to dismiss me again, and I told her I am not having a seat. Go find Dr. So-and-so because she told me, and I was trying to tell her about my CT scan, and she starts giving me that dumbass stupid statement about gunshots and stabbing victims. And so I lost my shit with her too. And I told her, I don't even know what I told her. I know I was yelling and screaming and I was like, I don't care about a gunshot victim or whoever. I was just like angry. And so I was like, you need to go find them. And so she called the security guard. And then the security guard is this big old huge, Suge Knight looking dude. And he turns around. He turns around and he starts coming to me. And again, you guys, I can laugh at this now, but at the time, like, this was all very real. And I was extremely afraid that I was like going to drop dead at any moment. So just keep that in mind. Like, I'm laughing now because it's this many years later, but in those moments, like, I was extremely afraid that at any moment I was going to drop dead, because I know that people, when their appendix ruptures, like, that happens. Like, people's appendix ruptures and moments later they are dead. And so and then the fact that this doctor was just like so adamant and urgent that I come in. So anyway, Suge Knight security guard turns around and starts walking toward me like he's going to do something. And I walked right up to him and I put my finger dead between his eyes. And I told him I didn't give a damn about his size. He better turn his ass around and go find Dr. So-and-so before it all got buck in this emergency room. So sidebar, if you have never met me in person, or if you've met me and happy Anya and sweet Anya, and I am all of those things, but Anya is also about that life when it comes to her life and her children's life and her family and friends' life. And so I don't play. That's what it is. And I don't care the size. Like, I'm not afraid of a person. And so Suge Knight security guard did not scare me. And in fact, Suge Knight security guard did exactly as he was told. And he turned around and he went and found Dr. So-and-so. And then they came and got me. And so I go into the back again where, and so now there's a whole team of doctors, right? There's like 6 doctors standing around me. They put me on the bed. Everybody has their stethoscopes out, right? Like, everybody has their stethoscopes out. Everybody's asking me the same questions all at the same time. Like, now all this attention and like hands touching my body that was so absent the night before. And I kept saying to them, and I was just like crying. Like, once I actually got in the bed and they were looking at me and talking to me, I started crying and I was just like, nobody examined me last night. That's what I kept saying. It was like, nobody examined me. Nobody examined me. And so then one of the doctors does the classic push your belly in, and the rebound pain that is indicative of a ruptured appendix occurred, and I damn near jumped off the table. And so it was like, even if that doctor had done that, if he had just pressed on my belly, honey, we wouldn't have had to have that expensive CT scan that he was so worried about my insurance being upset about. Like, if he would have done that, we would have known in a matter of minutes what happened to me, and things would have been fine. And so they do that. I'm crying. I'm, telling them that I can't get in touch with my husband, and I'm afraid. And, they're talking about rushing me to surgery. And Joe Schmo doctor from the night before waltzes his silly behind into my curtain area talking about, y'all, like, I wish I could be making this up right now. Like, I wish I were giving you a sitcom story, but this was my real life. Like, this actually, truly, factually happened. This happened. It's real. And I know I'm not the only person that these things happen to, and that's why I'm sharing. And so he bounces his silly self back into my room or into my little curtain area, and then has the nerve to make a joke talking about, Miss Willoughby, if you're going to be here so frequently, because clearly no one clued him in. No one clued him in to the fact that he missed a whole ruptured appendix. And so he made some joke about, if I'm going to be here so frequently that they should probably start paying me. And he got cussed smooth out. And I told him that he did not believe me, and that now I am probably going to surgery all on my own without the support of my husband, because he didn't pay attention last night and because he didn't believe me. And then he stood there trying to make his excuses and whatever. And so what wound up happening is they'd made the decision that because my entire abdomen was filled with the fluid that, is inside of your appendix, and that is what it causes you to go into sepsis because it's poison. And so they decided that would be the worst thing to do, is to perform surgery on me. And so what they did was just started me on this very heavy course of IV antibiotics. And I just had IV antibiotics running basically 24/7 for like 3 days. And then down. And so anyway, I was in the hospital for a little over a week. And then I went home and I had to be on oral antibiotics for about 3 months. And I had to keep going back to have these scans to make sure that everything was, that the amount of poison that was in my abdomen was shrinking. And so we're talking about, this became a course where, the typical course of a person has a ruptured appendix, and if they make it to the emergency room in time, surgery is performed and it's done. It's not a done deal, but that's that, it's done. But now, because my care had been so delayed, this becomes a stretch of 6 months of antibiotics and going back and forth to the doctor to make sure that that this poison is reducing, and that was that. And the thing is that I obviously at this point, and obviously at the end of that situation, was very grateful that I didn't turn out to be one of those stories in the news where Black women go to the ER and they're not believed, especially if they're homeless Black women, that they are like, not even that they're not believed, but they are fought against. They are actually physically removed from the emergency room and die right outside of the doors that they were seeking care at. That Black women who have babies and then go back to the hospital and complain of shortness of breath and chest pain are given an X-ray and an EKG, but no one ever reads it until after she's dead. And then it's like, oh. That Black women who are postpartum in the hospital, actually in the bed receiving care, but bleeding out and forced to wait because there's not enough